Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about nested loop and stepwise refinement. So as a sample program, I wrote this program called Henkel. That's in the notes actually. So this program takes an integer as an input. If you type 5, it basically outputs this kind of matrix. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like that. Okay. If you type different number, it prints out this, or another number, 44, prints out this. It's too big, maybe 34. Yeah. So 1 to 34, 2 to 35, and the last line is 34 to 67. Incremental 1 by 1, by column, by row. Okay. So how would you write a program for this? So one useful technique that you're going to use again and again for this situation is something called stepwise refinement. Other people also say divide and conquer. Okay. So what is this? This is basically, it's kind of, as an analogy, it's kind of like similar to draw a picture. Right? So when you draw a picture, you actually make some rough sketch or skeleton. And then based on that, actually, you find like the sketch into a picture. So what does this mean? So you have a task, you have to draw something, you have to build something. The way to do it is create some blueprint or sketch. Okay? That is rough structure. So you divide this into some smaller job. Okay. And then now refine more. This job, the smaller job, can be divided into more smaller job. And eventually, this is basically a line of code or something. So that's basically the way of writing the program, especially the size of the program gets bigger and bigger. So in our situation, so the input is some number, and then you have to print out the matrix. So now let's think about this example. If n is 3, what you have to write is, well, you have to do the right num 1, right num 2, right num 3, and then go to the new line, and then right num. In this case, it has to be 2, 3, 4, and then 3, 4, 5. Something like this has to be done. Okay, so in a sense, to write this matrix, what are things that is repeated? Well, you have to write a row, right? So write n rows, right? And then for each row, how do you write each row? Writing each row. You have to refine, writing each row. Well, you have to write n columns. So n rows, that means you have to repeat this task of writing rows n times. That's a loop. And then writing n column is corresponding to what? Writing n, calling n right nums. Right? So you have to call right num functions n times. Okay? So that's what you need to do. So let's think about it. So to reflect this idea into code, so this loop should be what? I'm going to introduce some variable I. And then basically, this I, let's say, is representing the first number in each row. So for I is 1 to n. So you got to repeat this things n times, starting with I0, starting with I1, and up to the case where I is n. Okay, so this is right n rows. And then what? You got to write n columns. Okay, so for that, because you need to call write num n times, so I'm going to introduce another variable j. Okay, so basically for j, so let's say this is I, in this case, and you have to print write num I, and then you have to print I plus 1, and then this num from I plus 2. What does that mean? Well, this thing should be j. So for j up to n minus 1, so that this is like n things, right, I plus j. Okay. So that's basically what you need to do. Of course, there's a nested loop there. So let's code up here. Henkel.c. Let me share the screen. Henkel.c. Okay, include IC210.h. Okay, name to main. And then what? Outputs. Enter number n, and n has to be, let's see, less than 50. And then you have to read an integer from standard in. And then what you need to do as well, you have to create two loop variables. So first one is I, is starting with 1 up to n. And then for each time you increment by 1, the starting number. And then for each row, this is basically right n rows. And then what? Write n numbers in each row. How do you write n numbers? You have to start with j0 up to n minus 1. This is how you say it, n minus 1. And then we increment j. And then what do you have to do? Well, you have to write num I plus j. Okay. And probably you need to put some space. Okay. Oh, and then what? We have to break a line. So here, at the end of writing n numbers, we have to break a new line. Okay, good. So let's try this. GCC, Henkel.c, read that out. So 5 looks good. So let's write 10. Doesn't look good. Oh yeah, the problem is this 9 and 10 has to be aligned well. So that means for 9, you have to put a space in front of the number 9. So that can be taken care of using if statement. If I plus j is less than 10, that means 0 up to 9. You just put some white space before the number, before calling the right num function. Okay, let's compile that. Okay. So at this moment, this is pretty obvious, but let me just go over how the program works. Okay. So this is the variable structure. So let's say n is 3. So this n is 3. Okay, and then we have one integer variable I, and then another variable j. The scope of j is this, but for the sake of this presentation, I'll just like say j is this for the rest of the time. Okay, so in here, j is I is initialized with 1. You check it, and this is true. Okay, you go into this loop. Then now j is initialized into 0. Okay, and j is less than 3. That's good. You go there, and then you print out I plus j, which is 1, and then space. Okay, you go there. The loop iteration is done. Move on to the next iteration. This one is executed, so this is 1 now. Okay, check. This is true. So I plus j is 2, and then space. And then go there. J plus plus. Now this is 2. Okay. So now this is still true. So you go there. 3 is printed out. This is printed out. Now go there. J plus plus. Now this becomes 3. This becomes false as of now. So you exit the loop. When you exit the loop, you basically get out of the inner loop, not the whole loop. Some students were confused, but remember, this loop is done. When this loop is done, you have to go here. So then you have to do the line break. Okay? So now you're done. And then because of this, you now go all the way to here. So I plus plus is done. So this is 2. Okay? You check it. This is true. Now j is again initialized with the 0. And then you check it. This is 2 now, right? And then 3, and then 4, and then exit is done. Line break. I plus plus. So that's basically what? 3. This is still true. You go there, and then 3, 4, 5 is printed out. And then you go there, and then I plus plus 4. Now this is false, so you exit the loop. So that's basically how things are done with the nested loop.